history of reading and writing about crime, I have come across plenty of weird cases, but there are actually few that are as bizarre as the case of Rod Ferrell and his vampire clan. Now, there's no doubt that young Americans have always been obsessed with vampire culture. But in the 90s, a group of teenagers went one step ahead and started living as actual vampires. Yes, you heard me right. Soon the fascination with vampires turned into something far more sinister and ultimately led to the brutal murder of 2 people. So what exactly happened? Who was this Rod Ferrell? Who were his fellow vampires? And who did he kill? Today I'm going to discuss this chilling story of how a seemingly 16-year-old ordinary boy from Kentucky became a cult leader and a youngest killer. Roderick Justin Ferrell was born on March 28, 1980 in Murray, Kentucky. At the point of his birth, both of the parents were teenagers, and his father soon after the birth joined the military and went away.
We didn't live together very long. We married and divorced within the same year of Rod's birth. We didn't have a bad divorce or anything like that. It was just that he went on his separate ways.
Rod's early years were spent with his mother, Sondra Gibson, who supported them by working as an exotic dancer and occasionally even a sex worker. Now, in the beginning, he was just another kid in a small town living with a single mother. However, as he grew older, his interests began to take a dark turn. Ferrell soon developed a keen interest towards vampires and cults. By high school, he had fully embraced a vampire persona, even giving himself a name Visato, claiming to be 500-year-old vampire.
There are numerous forms of vampires. You'll find cannibals, you'll find blood drinkers, you'll find psionic vampires, those who fear the sun. They have numerous names, numerous manifestations. I took the name Visago, and I wrote it in the Enochian alphabet on the back of my neck.
Rod soon discovered that he wasn't the only one with this bizarre obsession. There were others too, who were just like him and were equally interested in living as vampires, and thus began the vampire clan. Now, at most times, the clan's activities involved wearing all black, wandering around at night and listening to goth music.
For some people, it was a religion. Let me make that very clear. There were some of them that it was very much a religion. And some it was a lifestyle, and some it was both.
But it wasn't always this harmless. They believed and even practiced bizarre rituals, which included drinking each other's blood. For them, it was more than just a game, it was a lifestyle and a belief system. Now, in order to become a part of this clan, you would have to drink blood, and a member of the clan would cross you over as a vampire in a sacred ritual. Rod himself went through the same ritual as described in one of his interviews.
The initiation took place as what they term the crossover. They had to take my blood and then feed me their blood, because they consider the blood to be the true life.
Over the course of the next few months, the members of the clan kept increasing, and so did the horrifying nature of their activities. And this is the point where Heather Vendroff enters this story. Now, around 1990, Rod and his mother were regularly going to Eustis, Florida, to his maternal grandparents' house. While living there, Rod became friends with Heather Vendroff, who, according to the people, was a troubled Eustis high sophomore who regularly rebelled against her parents. After moving back to Kentucky for 10th grade, Rod would call Heather almost daily, which further strengthened their friendship. Back in Kentucky, Rod had vigorously started recruiting new members for his clan, as some of the old ones had moved away. Among these new recruits was the 16-year-old Howard Scott, who came from an extremely poor household with an alcoholic father who would regularly abuse him and his mother. Another important member of the clan was Rod's girlfriend, Charity Keys. By the time Rod turned 16, all of these members were spending most of their time together in a rented house.
and some of us just sort of half lived it. But anywhere from the normal 5 or 6 people to 20.
This was the time when Rod's behavior started becoming more and more erratic, thus leading to his first criminal offense. So what happened was that in October 1996, Rod broke into the Murray-Calloway County animal shelter, where he gruesomely killed 2 puppies.
He got to looking out in the field, and that's when he found the puppies that had been mutilated.
We started asking questions to people in the area. We got statements from several people who indicated it was a so-called vampire group that did it. People that we talked to and people that we charged indicated that it was just part of a ceremony. They tore the limbs from the animals and took the blood and poured it on each other.
According to reports, he was later arrested on charges of burglary, trespassing, and cruelty to animals. Now, Heather on her phone calls had told Rod that her parents abused her and she wanted to run away from home. So in November 1996, Rod, his 16-year-old girlfriend Charity, Scott Anderson, and another girl named Dana Cooper drove to Eustis in Anderson's car to pick up Heather Wendroff. Rod had planned that after picking up Heather, they would move to New Orleans and live together as a vampire family. And in this way, he would save Wendroff from a troubled home too. On Monday, November 25, 1996, this whole group gathered in Eustis Cemetery, where Heather was crossed over to become a vampire after drinking Rod's blood. Afterwards, Rod took LSD and went to the Wendroff home to steal their car for the trip to New Orleans. The same night, Rod and Anderson entered the Wendroff home with the intention of stealing a car. They entered the home through their garage, where Rod armed himself with a crowbar. When Rod entered the house, he encountered 49-year-old Richard Wendroff, who was asleep on a couch. Immediately after seeing him, Rod started to strike him repeatedly on the head, which led to his death. The mother, Naomi Queen, who had been showering in another part of the house, came after hearing the noise and threw a cup of hot coffee on Rod. Within the matter of seconds, Rod attacked her, striking her so hard with the crowbar that it severed her brainstem, killing her instantly. After this, both of the victims were given ritualistic burns. Rod and Anderson searched the house for valuables and left after stealing a credit card, some jewelry, and the family's blue Ford Explorer. Now by this point, things had taken an extremely violent turn, and Rod now was a murderer at a run.
Original intent to merely pick her up, take her back to where I was staying. Instead, it led to the actual homicides.
Jennifer Wendroff, Heather's 17-year-old sister, was the first one to find out about the murder when she returned from work that night.
My father has just been killed. I just walked in the door. I don't know what happened. They're dead. What makes you think that they have been killed? There is blood everywhere. Please.
Jeff Taylor, who was the first respondent after this call, described the crime scene as horrific, with blood splattered everywhere. It wasn't just a robbery gone wrong. It was a scene of sheer brutality.
His face and head looked like hamburger. That's the only thing I could relate to it. It was just a bloody mess. As I came back out through the living room, I could see Mrs. Wendroff laying face down between the kitchen and the dining room.
After this, the police started looking for the perpetrators of this horrific crime. And on 27th November, murder warrants were issued for the whole group, including Heather Wendroff. As expected, the group's freedom was quite short-lived. After being on the run for 4 days, they were caught on November 28th from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, when Charity Keys called her mother. With these arrests, the vampire clan came to an end, and individual trials for all clan members began. However, Rod and his fellow vampires soon became a nationwide phenomenon, thanks to extensive media coverage. Rod Ferrell's trial was a media spectacle. For media platforms, the story of a teenage vampire cult leader was too sensational to ignore. Rod, who had pleaded guilty to the murders, showed little remorse. In fact, he began to play the role of vampire with even greater dedication, and his demeanor and bizarre claims of being a vampire only added to the public's shock and fascination. During the trial, whenever photographed, he would stick his tongue out or sarcastically say, "God bless America." In February 1998, Rod was sentenced to death. At the time, this made him the youngest person on death row in the US. However, in 2000, his sentence was reduced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, following a Supreme Court ruling that deemed it unconstitutional to execute someone for crimes committed as a minor. His accomplice, Howard Scott Anderson, pleaded guilty in April 1998 and received 2 life sentences. During investigation, he had admitted that according to the plan, it was him who had to kill the mother, but at that time, he froze and couldn't do it.
So your intentions were to go up there and assist him in that?
Yes.
And how were you going to assist?
He was going to go after his father and I was going to go after the mother. But then, when I saw him make the first blow, I knew I could.
In December 2018, Anderson's sentence was reduced to 40 years, including time already served. He will be 51 when he is released from prison. Dana Cooper and Charity Keys made plea deals in exchange for reduced charges and sentences. In fact, Charity was the first one to break during the investigation and admit that the group knew about Rod's intentions and they went along with it.
I want to be separated from Rod. That's all that's wrong with me. I don't want to be separated from Rod.
And you heard both of them with your own ears say, "We're going to kill the parents"?
I heard Rod say it. Scott just nodded his head and went with Rod. Me and Shay did try to convince him not to do it, but
Not to do what?
not to kill her parents.
What was your reaction to that?
It's like, well, there's no other way. It was like talking to a brick wall.
So your intentions were to go up there and assist him in that?
Yes.
And how were you going to assist?
He was going to go after his father and I was going to go after the mother.
Charity Keys was given a 10-year sentence while Dana Cooper received 17 years. Both women have since been released from prison. The gruesome and bizarre nature of these murders shocked the quiet community of Eustis, Florida. Heather Wendorf was acquitted of any involvement in her parents' deaths because she wasn't there at that time and had no knowledge about the intentions of the group. Rod, however, in his various interviews maintained that Heather previously had asked him to kill her parents.
2 witnesses who overheard Heather Wendorf opining to Rod Ferrell that she wanted her parents dead.
Rod again appealed to have his life sentence reduced in 2020, but a judge denied his request, stating in his decision that the prisoner was irreparably corrupt. During this hearing, Heather's elder sister testified, saying, "May I have a place that's not traumatized by looking over my shoulder? If he ever gets out, I'll be destroyed. I'll be back to that lonely little girl nearly 23 years ago." Currently, Rod Ferrell is imprisoned at the Tomoka Correctional Institution in Volusia County, Florida. Heather Wendorf, on the other hand, is married and had previously studied art from North Carolina University. Although there have been attempts to charge her, 2 grand juries declined to press charges against her for having any part in the murder of her parents, as she was in a car with 2 other people at the time of the crime. Now let's understand Rod Ferrell a bit. To understand what drove Rod Ferrell to such extremes, we actually need to look deeper into his psyche. Psychological evaluations conducted after his arrests revealed that he had several personality disorders, including schizotypal personality disorder and borderline personality disorder. These conditions likely played a significant role in his actions. And in addition to all this, Rod Ferrell's home life was also far from stable. His mother, Sondra Gibson, had her own issues and shared his interest in this vampire and cult culture. There were even allegations of inappropriate behavior towards her son. All these factors created a perfect storm leading to Ferrell's descent into violence. While today, the vampire cult is gone for more than 2 decades, it still remains to be a haunting tale in America's true crime history. You can argue the factors that led to Rod Ferrell's descent from a troubled teenager to a murderous cult leader, but the fact remains that he made a conscious decision to drive to another city and take 2 lives in a gruesome manner. Although Rod's behavior had changed a lot from the beginning of the trial, still I don't think there's a chance of reduced sentences now or even in future. In prison, Rod maintains a cult status of vampire or Count Dracula. However, Heather Wendorf lives in a quiet life away from her family and all kinds of limelight. What are your views about this story? Do let me know in the comment section, and thanks for watching.